The tension in the CBS Mornings studio that Thursday began long before cameras rolled. Faith Hill arrived earlier than usual, a quiet cup of coffee in hand, greeting crew members with her warm smile, yet even that couldn't soften the electric unease threading through the building. She had been guest co-hosting for a week, and viewers absolutely adored her natural presence, grounded, humorous, deeply human. Her segments consistently went viral for their authenticity. Executives were thrilled, producers were thrilled, but Nate Burleson, not so much. It wasn't animosity. Nate genuinely admired Faith, her legendary music career, her southern charm, her grace on and off camera. But he thrived on structure, timing, segment flow. And Faith, with her storyteller's soul, breezed past those constraints effortlessly. If she felt a moment tug at her heart, she followed it. If a guest said something meaningful, she dug deeper. If the teleprompter tried to pull her back, she ignored it. It was great television, but for Nate, it was chaos disguised as charisma. That morning, the disagreement began with a segment about celebrity philanthropy. Nate expected a light, fast-paced discussion with fun visuals and upbeat commentary. Faith, however, had spent the night reading about the emotional roots behind some of these charities, stories of grief, addiction, healing, and resilience. She wanted the segment to honor that depth. The clash was subtle at first. Nate pushed for staying on script, Faith pushed for meaning. When the producer sided with Nate, Faith didn't argue, but her silence afterward held its own gravity. Minutes before airtime, the energy backstage felt like a thick fog. Gayle King sensed it too. She gave both of them gentle glances, hoping to diffuse things with her presence alone, but even she couldn't smooth over whatever storm was brewing between her co-hosts. When the red studio light blinked on, the show opened flawlessly. Nate introduced the philanthropy segment with his trademark sparkle. Today we're taking a fun look at the lighter side of giving back, Faith nodded, smiling politely. But the glimmer in her eyes told a different story. As they moved through the first part of the discussion, Faith listened, waiting for the moment she felt the truth deserved space. And when a graphic appeared showing a celebrity's charity inspired by a family tragedy, she couldn't hold back. You know, Faith began, her tone soft but steady, sometimes when we talk about philanthropy, we forget the real emotional journey behind why these causes even start. There's pain, there's loss, there's healing, and those are the stories that touch people. Nate paused, his brow tightening just a fraction. Absolutely, Faith, he said, keeping his anchor smile fixed, but today we're focusing on the lighter angle, keeping it fun and quick. But that's the problem, isn't it? Faith interrupted gently, turning toward him. People aren't tuning in just for gloss. They want honesty. They want heart. The air shifted. You could almost hear every producer behind the glass inhaling sharply. Gayle blinked, sitting a little straighter. Even the studio audience leaned in as if sensing the undercurrent. Nate pushed forward, trying to maintain control. We bring honesty every day. But we also have a format. Format doesn't mean we can't be real, Faith replied, more firmly this time. That was the moment the spark ignited. The exchange stayed polite, but the tone was unmistakably tense. Nate accused her of derailing the segment's structure. Faith countered that structure shouldn't suffocate sincerity. He reminded her she was temporary. She reminded him she was brought on specifically because her voice connected with people. And despite how calm they both appeared, viewers could feel the friction radiating through their screens. When the show abruptly cut to commercial, the studio fell into stunned silence. Faith stood slowly, her face composed but resolute. She reached behind her, unclipped her mic pack, and placed it gently on the desk. I won't be part of something that feels this restricted, she said quietly, not looking at anyone in particular. This isn't why I agreed to be here. Nate stared at her, caught between frustration and disbelief. Gayle reached out, trying to speak, but Faith had already started walking. She moved through the hallway with the graceful determination of someone who'd made up her mind long before the cameras started rolling. Interns stepped aside, wide-eyed. Producers scrambled, whispering frantically into headsets. Security held doors open as if escorting royalty. Within minutes, word circulated across the entire building. The fallout from Faith Hill's sudden departure spread across the media world like wildfire. Within minutes, staff members inside the CBS building were whispering in corners, exchanging frantic messages, replaying the tense segment again and again to confirm what they had just witnessed. Producers rushed between rooms, trying to decide whether to address it on air or pretend nothing unusual had happened. Gayle King, always the calm center of the universe, attempted to keep the show moving, but even she couldn't mask the shock lingering in her voice. By noon, clips of the exchange, both the on-air disagreement and Faith removing her mic, were everywhere. Social media platforms exploded. Fans of Faith praised her for defending authenticity. Fans of Nate defended him for protecting the format. And those who simply loved drama pulled up chairs, grabbed popcorn, and analyzed every raised eyebrow and breath between their clash. Journalists scrambled for statements. Reporters camped outside CBS headquarters. Talk shows used the moment as instant content, discussing whether live TV had become too scripted, whether guest hosts had enough room to bring individuality, whether Nate had dismissed Faith too quickly, or whether Faith had taken things too personally. But the person at the center of the storm was nowhere near New York. Faith had already boarded a private flight to Nashville before the clip even hit 10,000 views. As she leaned back in her seat, staring out the window at the skyline shrinking beneath her, she felt a strange mixture of relief and heartbreak. She never wanted to cause chaos, not on live television, not among her colleagues, and certainly not for viewers waking up expecting a normal morning show. But she also refused to sit in a place that felt emotionally dishonest. Her phone buzzed nonstop, messages from friends, texts from fellow artists, calls from producers, and countless notifications from social media. She silenced it and stared at the clouds, letting the quiet fill her. Meanwhile, Nate Burleson sat alone in his dressing room after the show wrapped. The adrenaline had worn off, replaced by a gnawing discomfort he couldn't shake. He replayed the argument in his mind, hearing not just his own frustration but the moments he might have pushed too hard to maintain control. He knew Faith wasn't malicious. Her passion was genuine, but in the heat of live television, his instinct had been to protect the structure, the pacing, the responsibility he felt toward the entire show. Still, something about her final words, "This isn't why I agreed to be here," hit him in a place he didn't expect. Was she right? Had the show become too polished, too controlled, too afraid of veering into deeper waters? Gail knocked gently on his door a little while later. "You okay?" she asked, sitting beside him. Nate sighed. "I didn't want it to go like that." "I know," she said softly. "And so does she." The silence that followed spoke volumes. This wasn't a simple on-air disagreement. It was a philosophical clash, two professionals with different visions of what real conversation should look like. Back in Nashville, Faith spent the weekend in quiet reflection. She cooked, she walked her property, she played music late into the night. It was the first time in years she'd felt this kind of internal tug of war. Part of her was proud for standing up for meaningful conversation. Another part feared that her exit had overshadowed the very message she wanted to highlight. By Monday morning, every major entertainment outlet headlined her walkout. Memes circulated, reaction videos multiplied, fans demanded interviews, publicists offered strategic statements, but Faith chose not to speak, yet. She wanted time to sort her thoughts before letting the world back into her voice. CBS finally released a polished, diplomatic statement acknowledging the unexpected departure, and emphasizing their deep respect for Faith Hill. It satisfied absolutely no one. Then, unexpectedly, Nate posted a message of his own. Not crafted by publicists, not polished for optics. A simple, heartfelt note directly from him. "Faith is a remarkable woman with a powerful voice. Our on-air moment was tense, and I take responsibility for my part in that. Authentic conversations matter, even when they're uncomfortable. I hope we find a chance to talk privately soon." It was the first thing that softened the narrative. 2 days later, Faith finally broke her silence in a video filmed at home, simple lighting, natural tone, no production. She spoke openly about her belief in meaningful dialogue, her desire for authenticity, and her respect for Nate despite their clash. She didn't apologize for leaving, but she clarified that it wasn't personal, it was about honoring the kind of conversations she believed in. Her video went viral instantly, but not for drama. For sincerity. The frenzy began to settle. Rumors swirled that CBS wanted Faith back for a dedicated special. Others speculated Nate and Faith might meet for a public conversation about authenticity in media. Whether that would happen wasn't clear. But one thing was certain. The morning Faith Hill walked off CBS Mornings didn't just shake daytime television. It ignited a national conversation about truth, storytelling, vulnerability, and the delicate balance between keeping a show running and letting a moment breathe. And that, ironically, was exactly the depth Faith had been fighting for all along.